You are now on the Michael Stone journey. Buckle up.
So my purpose in this video channel is going to mostly be trying to give you what I have done and what I do in my way of life to hopefully help with giving you meaning in your life or purpose in life. By no means am I an expert or a teacher in these kind of things. All I can do really is just basically tell you where I was and what I overcame to get where I am. And I think that is definitely something that can be helpful to many people out there. I mean, I think that depends what you're looking for. If you're stuck in your life, if you're looking for purpose, if you are searching for meaning in life, if you're, if you're trying to start some kind of new venture, and I can give you one tip that actually helps in your life, then I'll have done what I really set out to do, and what I know is the purpose in what I'm supposed to do. So I was just a little bit about, I don't know, since it's an introduction video, I was basically raised as Jewish, but as an atheist. I mean, my parents both are atheist. They were children of the 60s kind of thing, but maybe a little older than most of the children of the 60s. They had friends who were definitely, when I was little, definitely into all the movements of the 60s and like early 70s. I had like aunts and uncles that weren't really our aunts and uncles, but my parents didn't really get over that line to where a lot of their friends, I guess back then, did. And far as, I don't think my dad has even ever smoked weed once, but I know they have friends that do and did. My mom, maybe once or twice, but they weren't really into that part of it. And then, once they got to a different level of life, they changed their views on most all those things, as far as where they were in the 60s and early 70s, which I think probably happens to a lot of people when they get out of college. They have a certain view and a certain worldview, and then 20 years later, it's the opposite worldview. I mean, once you have some money for the government to actually take, I think that changes your view on things. At least I think it did to theirs. But anyway, so being raised the way I was, I mean, we kind of did like all the Jewish type things and holidays, but God wasn't ever really mentioned by my parents, and my grandparents were mostly Holocaust, not survivors, but Holocaust like survivors. Their parents were probably, but that kind of was their way of life, and how they thought was everybody's out to get us, and you've got to, that's the way at least my grandmother used to feel about the world. But she was awesome. She just had a view. Look, I mean, when you come from a certain place, and back then things were a lot different. They had I'm sure, prejudices that my kids don't have. But I think that my grandfather was all about business. I mean, I don't think I ever even knew his worldview. But he was a pretty awesome guy too. Anyway, so as soon as you hit 13, I mean, in mine and all my friends' life, the Jewish thing is pretty much done with. And that's the way it is with probably 3/4 of Jewish people in America. Once you hit the 13, you do your thing, and then you're done. So, moving on past that, I had a daughter pretty early. I think I was 19, definitely not married, who works with me now. We've pretty much had like 3 or 4 businesses together that we've done throughout the last 10 years. She has 2 kids who definitely put meaning and purpose to my life. And I mean, I have other kids too, but as you'll pretty much see, I spent most of their life pretty fucked up. So, I mean, that contributes to my whole way of thinking what I need to do with her kids. So when I got it, I don't know, I was about, it was probably like 1991 or 1992, right before I met my wife. I went through a series of things which led me towards rethinking all of my atheistic views on life. I mean, usually you see it the other way around. I was religious, I was a Christian, and as soon as I started questioning things, and I turned into an atheist. With me and many people that I knew back then, it was the exact opposite. So, I mean, that has a shape. Not that I really, after a little while, I didn't really follow any of the things that I had started believing, but now I do. So I kind of put all that on hold for another 15 years while I was using drugs and drinking daily for the next 15 years. Kind of put all that on the back burner. So got married around 1992-ish. I have cheated death twice in my life, definitely this close. Been to jail a couple of times in the past life. But, along the way, I did learn a lot of things. I mean, first business we had was a commercial cleaning business, which, that was back in the 90s. So we got cleaning accounts like at banks. We had some banks, we had doctor's offices. That lasted a few years till I ended up in the hospital for 2 months in ICU. And my wife ended up having to do the whole business, which I'm sure she hated. Then as soon as I came around, which is also one of my times in drug rehab. So that lasted a couple of years. That was my first time I cheated death, was right around that time. Blew my pancreas up from drinking and drugs. Then after that, I think my favorite job I ever had was selling cars, which is kind of where we went after that business. anyway, there was a guy selling cars at the commercial department, I guess you would call it. And that was when the internet just started. So he was getting all the internet leads. This is back in the 90s. And probably compared to now, it wasn't that many, but I was a little jealous of all, these leads he was getting. And I loved selling cars. It was like my favorite thing ever. Anyway, I say, okay, let me see if I can put up a little website and see if I can get some of my own internet leads. And so back then there was a software that you could buy to teach you how to build a website and all that, helped you out with it. So I ended up building a website for cars. It ended up really taking off. I ended up selling that. Then I was into internet ever since. That was, I think that was probably the last job I ever had, like working for somebody else, except for a few years in between when I went to treatment again for drugs and alcohol, which I'll get into that. But other than that, I really haven't worked for anybody since. So after I sold the car website, I was doing adult websites back then. That was huge. That was for a few years until basically you could get any movies and adult movies you wanted to see on the internet for free. So that pretty much killed that business for everybody. And through this time, I was still using Oxycontin and every opiate daily. And unfortunately or fortunately, taking Oxy, to me, helped me stay up all day and all night working on websites. I had thousands of sites that I built. Mixed caffeine with Oxy, for me, I was good to go. So anyway, I ended up like 2003-ish, ended up in jail. For me, that's how it kind of went. I would go on normally, making money, doing business, and all of a sudden, boom, something would happen that obviously wasn't my fault. Well, that was a sarcasm, and I'm end up in jail. So after that, ended up working for a couple years at a lumberyard locally, and right around 2007, the foreclosure crisis hit in Florida especially, and my daughter had just got out of college. So her and her friends were all working for this lawyer doing loan modifications, which is help people that are in foreclosure, take their money, work on their foreclosure, get them a deal on not having to pay all the money that the bank wants, putting it in a short version. And basically that's what you did. So we started our own little shop and telemarketing room with the loan modifications. That was doing pretty well, but it was kind of a shady business. So the feds cracked down on all the loan modification places after a year or two, probably 2 years. And the attorney we were working with, it was really the attorney that does them. We were more like the call center. And then we worked on whatever paperwork. But he ended up getting in trouble for something, and at the same time the feds started cracking down on the whole industry. So we, at the time, I was still doing websites and doing SEO pretty much on all of our things. I had a HGH, human growth hormone, website that did extremely well for a time, but again, that ended up getting cracked down on pretty hard also at the time, so that didn't last that long, but when it did, it was good. So anyway, I was working on, there was another guy that we met, who was doing loan mods, but he was into a lot of other shady kind of call rooms and stuff. But he had opened pain clinics, which down in Florida were huge. If you don't know much about them, you basically go there, you give your $200 on your way out. You don't even have to go to the pharmacy. The doctor sells the oxys and everything there. So that was huge in Florida for probably 10 years or more. And I was doing his websites for him. He ended up getting, the feds raided him, and he's still in prison. Anyway, I still had the websites and access to them while he was gone, so I decided to like put my own 800 number on there, and that phone kept ringing 24/7 for 3 years straight. So we opened up, I don't know, 5 pain clinics in different states. And that was like 2009, 10, 11-ish. Needless to say, I don't know, if you don't watch the news, then it's probably news to you, but in Florida, the feds came down here and cracked down on there was probably a couple thousand pain clinics in Florida. And they did not like me, that's for sure. So I ended up going to Georgia and opened one near Atlanta. Well, that shit didn't last long either until they found us, and it was horrible. It was in the news. I used to get physically ill going to the office. There was addicts lined up down the fucking street waiting to get in there from like Kentucky and Tennessee and Ohio. They would drive there. And I just knew the DEA was coming any minute. And so I ended up selling that one to one of the girls who was working there. I don't know what happened to it, but they were still following us. They were still following me because I went and opened up a different one in St. Louis. That didn't last long. That only lasted like 6 months probably before the DEA closed that one down, and I ended up in a office at my lawyer's around a conference table with 6 DEA and GBA, Georgia Bureau of Investigation, screaming at me because I wasn't really the owner. So there wasn't any charges that ever got against me because I was just a website guy. I'm just a website guy. I don't know anything, but to them, that was bad. So I think that, and I always had managed to get doctors at these pain clinics, obviously, that would give me whatever prescriptions I wanted. But those were very, very good cash businesses for a lot of people until you ended up in federal prison. But they were not illegal, they were legal. The problem was, to me, it was a good thing, but back then I didn't think it was. The DEA basically can do whatever they want. They wanted them shut down, that was that. Even if by the state laws that we thought we were following all the laws. Anyway, so that was about 3 years. So they ended up getting me anyway, which was not for the pain clinics, but for other stuff down here that they maneuvered how I ended up going to jail again. So I ended up going to jail again, back in rehab. This is about 2011 or 12, which was the last time I took any oxys or anything like that. So, but I have another YouTube channel that is more geared towards that kind of a stuff, recovery type issues. I don't want to get into much of that kind of stuff on this, but look, a lot of the concepts that I follow and that people that I know follow are very helpful to anybody. It doesn't matter if you're an addict, if you use drugs ever, if you drank too much ever. The concepts work for living a way of life that makes you happy. It's basic, simple stuff. So I think that it's a way of life. That's what I would definitely call it. My daughter and I Oh, so after that, my wife is a licensed therapist, so, which is a whole other, I've been married 25 years, so I can probably definitely have advice on that matter, since that was up and down, as you can imagine. Anyways, before I thought I was going to jail, for sure. Thought I was going away. But it didn't end up happening. I ended up getting probation. But I kind of helped her start a drug rehab, which she's been doing ever since. That was like 2012, 2013. I was still on probation, and that was just a office with her, my daughter, and one other person that just started off in a small office. She got a bigger office. It got bigger. And I don't know how that this always ends up happening, but again, the rehab business, to me, it's so weird. It's the opposite of like the pain clinic business, but down in South Florida, the feds and the state attorney, I mean, a lot of places ended up getting shut down, and all on the news all over the country. It just changed a lot. The whole business changed a lot. Not that she was ever doing anything wrong, but look, most of the drug rehabs in Florida were opened by addicts. She just happens to be an exception. And there are lots of good ones, but there was a couple of probably 300 addict-owned rehabs. And that doesn't go so well. They're going to look for the shortest way to make money. So those all got shut down over the last year or two. People went to jail. People got arrested. She's still in it. I'm not. I wanted to go on my own. She has other partners now. So we're opening up this office where we're doing it's like a marketing agency, social media, YouTube, Google, YouTube, social media stuff. I mostly work on my own websites now, which I have a bunch of them, but she's doing her part to getting her own clients for the agency. She's got another couple of girls helping her. I think that basically, I mean, that's where we are right now, kind of like in another starting out phase, and hopefully this one I don't think is any way going to end up to be a shady business, not that I can see anyway. So this might be my first one that's not, unfortunately. But we did very well at a lot of them. They just ended up getting shut down, not by any business reasons, but mostly Fed reasons. Anyway, so, I mean, look, along the way, I developed a way of living life, which is definitely something that I know will help anybody who wants to, or is searching for something. If you're searching for something, that's what I want to help with. Just by telling what I do. Like I said, I'm not an expert, I'm not a rabbi, I'm not any kind of expert on religion or God. You know what, people that aren't religious probably think I'm religious, but I ain't really. But I do definitely have my own views on things, so I'll have to see in future videos, which will be probably more topic related, I think is best, but we'll see how it goes. So a lot of stuff is me probably going to be telling you what I think is nonsense in the world. Kind of like kids in their 20s on YouTube who think they're a life coach. I mean, to me, what does a person in their 20s possibly know that are going to teach you about life and how to live? To me, that's nonsense. Just to bring up one little thing. If you want to teach me about math and you happen to be a math genius in your 20s, great. You want to teach me about some specific thing that you're awesome at and you're a kid in your 20s, awesome. But a life coach that is 24 years old, just as an example, to me this stuff is absolutely ridiculous. So I, in all transparency, am not here to pitch any kind of course. I'm not here to pitch any you signing up for anything. I'm not selling anything on these videos at all. This is just going to be, look, helping you to spot nonsense just in case you don't see it. I've developed a pretty good sense of being able to spot nonsense in the world. So, I mean, I don't want to make this a channel about religion at all. I definitely don't think I would push like any particular religion. I will only tell you what I do, which is really works for whether you're in a religion or not a religion, whether you're Jewish or not. But I mostly follow Kabbalah. I don't know how much anybody knows about that, and I'm not an expert in it, but I can definitely say I live a lot better of a life following it. And I think that the concepts that I learn in that and other religious type stuff that I do don't really have to be any one religion. They're definitely concepts that can help anybody. So that's mostly like where I come from these days. That's just part of my routine. And part of what I'm passionate about is God, Kabbalah, Torah, even though I do not claim to follow all the laws that are out there. If you're not Jewish, you have no idea how many laws there are that you're supposed to follow, but look, I kind of have my own way of doing it that works. That's what I'm going to pretty much talk about on videos. So, also, I'm pretty much passionate about food these days, the last couple of years, since I used to be 50 pounds heavier and had other health issues that are gone now. I can get pretty extreme about what I think people should be eating, but look, that's a whole other story. It doesn't mean you have to follow it. Doesn't have to mean you have to do what I say. I can only say what I'm doing.